Hi there, and thanks for tuning in again to this week's edition of your Wheel and Anchor weekly newsletter. Well, I don't know about you, but it's been a bit of a tough week to keep a smile on my face in light of all of the developments that we've been reading in the world media about the uptick in cases and the challenges that are arising as a result of this new, or not so new, but as this growing Delta variant seems to grip many parts of the world. And certainly as a traveler, I'm sure you as well as I have felt a lot of emotions about this, particularly when things seem to have been heading in the right direction. And while travel, long distance travel in the short term seems like maybe not the best idea, even looking out to the beginning of next year, question marks are starting to enter the equation. And I wanted to give you a brief synopsis about our Samui LiveAway program for our members who have booked in that program. And it was one of our most successful programs we've been planning for next year. But I'm sure you've been reading in the media about the challenges that have been faced by this country. As of today, we're reaching still all-time highs of over 23,000 cases a day, largely restricted to the northern part of the country, as you'll see in the map here. But nevertheless, it has caused a great deal of concern because just as we were thinking we would get through this whole thing without the adverse effects that most other places around the world, well, sure enough, that's come around to nip us in the butt, as it were. And it means that our plans for our Koh Samui are very much, I could say, on the rocks, for lack of a better word, given that we're planning to go in January and arrangements having had to be made some months in advance of that. So for those of you who are booked on the trip, if you didn't see our update video, please drop me a note and I will fill you in on that. But I think the important thing here is that the position that we're taking is, we're anxious to travel. Me, as much as anybody wants to see us to get out into the world, but of course we're not going to be taking any chances. And I think it's important here that we maintain sort of a tone of reality, of looking at the situation objectively. And I know for me, I can feel all the emotions that have been driven up for me, because you just want, let's just cancel everything. And immediately that sort of reactionary kind of tone comes in. But, luckily I'm surrounded by my wonderful colleagues and the people that I work with all around the world on these trips. And I think, I've been able to turn my own thoughts around and kind of say, well, maybe a wait and see attitude is more the way that we want to go, because while we're not going to take any risks of any kind, we also don't want to lose the opportunity when travel does come back full force, and it will, and it will next year at some point, and in some parts of the world. And so given that situation, we're doing our best to play our cards in a way that ensures that we'll be able to take advantage of these travel opportunities, because I know the whole world is waiting to get out there and travel again, not just our members at Wheel and Anchor. So we are going to be revising all of our non-refundable dates on our initial deposits. We're going to be even pushing back collecting deposits on some trips where there might be a question mark. For most trips happening next spring and beyond, we will be moving our date by which there is any kind of cancellation penalty back to November. In some cases, the beginning of November, in some cases, the late November. Essentially, we're taking steps, ensure that we can travel if we can, but at the same time, not putting anybody, ourselves included, in any kind of risk financially. I mean, that's certainly not what we're all about. And so please keep that in mind. Of course, we all have to make the best choices for each and every one of us. And I know that I'm very well aware of the concerns about some of our trips that are happening in the early part of next year. We are watching the situation just as in Thailand. And while it seems unlikely that we'll be able to travel, I'm here on the ground. I'm watching it very, very closely. And over the coming months, to the extent that there's an improvement, to the extent that the travel will be possible the way that we envision it, then we're certainly going to do that. And so I encourage you to think the same way about your own travel plans, whether they're with us or however. But rather than sort of, jumping to an immediate decision, just wait and see. And I have a feeling that is going to be the vibe for probably the next year or two as we find our way through dealing with COVID-19 that is going to likely be around for a long time. On that note, we always like to look ahead to the future for a little bit of optimism, a little bit of inspiration, and that's why it's time for us to do our annual trip inspiration survey. And as I said before in an earlier newsletter, we're going to be doing it a little earlier this year. In fact, we're going to be launching it later this month. And in anticipation of that, we're going to have 2 webinars, our next 2 series, next Thursday and the following Thursday, where we're going to introduce a few of the destinations that we are planning to run trips in 2023. And I know 2023 seems a long time away, but as I just said, given some uncertainty already about the early part of 2022, it's maybe doesn't hurt to at least let ourselves dream a bit about what's possible. And so the first 4 destinations we're going to be presenting next Thursday, that's the 19th of August, will be our LiveAway to Bali, Indonesia. And Bali is an incredible country, full of culture, incredible coastline, volcanoes. There's really something for everybody in Bali. My favorite thing, of course, is the creativity of the local people. So we'll be telling you a little bit about our LiveAway experience, which is going to happen in February, March of 2023. Followed by Bali, or I should say preceding Bali, we're going to be running our Koh Samui Thailand trip. And guessing that we won't be able to go this year, or if at all with maybe a very small group, the interest in it was so strong that we'll run Bali immediately before, we'll run Koh Samui immediately before Bali, so that those of you who are looking for an extended winter getaway could join us both for Koh Samui Thailand and Bali in the winter of 2023. Following Bali, we're going to be running our LiveAway to New Zealand, and it was the most popular LiveAway destination when we first introduced the concept about a year ago. And in New Zealand, we're going to visit 2 centers. We're going to spend 2 weeks on the North Island, on the Bay of Plenty, which is on the north coast of the North Island, and 2 weeks down in Queenston, which is in the heart of the mountainous region on the South Island of New Zealand. It could be an incredible adventure, give us a great insight into what New Zealand is all about. That trip will happen in April of 2023, or March, April of 2023. And then following that trip, we'll be headed off to Australia on our Australian rail adventure that's going to take us on 2 of Australia's celebrated railways, the Indian Pacific, which runs between Perth and Melbourne, as well as the Ghan, which runs from north to south, from Darwin up in the north all the way down to Adelaide. And we'll be riding on both of those trips, as well as seeing some of the other highlights. We'll give you a short presentation on what that trip is going to be about in our webinar next week. And finally, our first South American destination, or at least first since we started Wheel and Anchor. I've been fortunate to go there many times, and this will be our Crossing the Andes trip, where we're going to spend a good solid 5 days in and around Buenos Aires, Argentina, heading over to Mendoza, the capital of winemaking, at the foot of the Andes in the western part of Argentina, before crossing overland over the mountain pass into Chile, and spending the remainder of our trip in the capital of Santiago, and then with an extension to Easter Island. So you can find out a little bit more about all those trips and put yourself on the pre-release list by attending our webinar next Thursday, the 19th of August. And 1 week later, we will be doing the next 4 featured destinations for our trip inspiration survey. So follow us for all that. And once again, stay positive. It's tough times. We will get through this. We'll get back to traveling. And I can't wait to see all of you again on one of our upcoming webinars. And take care. We'll see you next week.